you all had any experiences here in the Tennessee area lately? Because I know my Tennessee folks are very much uh, part of the audience there. Tonight, we're going to be discussing, and very strongly discussing, some unusual experiences, to say the least, in this area. Uh, my guests tonight, both of them, are very familiar with what I'm talking about, with what we're going to be talking about tonight. One up close and personal, actually, is an experiencer, and she has been on with us before. So, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Magical Journey Podcast. Hold on just a second. I always have technical issues at the weirdest times. Again, there we go.
For everybody.
Beth Collins and Mr. Darrell Denton. Hey, how are you guys doing?
Good evening. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah,
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for coming. You know what? It's kind of a bumpy ride to start off with. There's some technical stuff going on everywhere tonight. So those that have been watching the show are familiar with Beth a little bit, and I'm sure everybody on this circuit knows you by now, Darrell. But tell us a little bit about how you guys know each other.
Beth, you want to start or you want me to?
Yeah, jump in there.
Well, Beth, I kind of met her through another friend of mine about 3 years ago. And she was telling me about her and she wanted me to reach out to her and talk to her because I'm a Tennessean and so is she, and we're not that far from each half the month. So I did, and I've become very close to Beth, and she's one of the admin in my group, and one of the most phenomenal people that I know, and her intuition is unreal. So she has just a very good intuition of things and forecoming, and she's helped me out in some situations, and just become a great friend of mine, and I admin in my group, and I'm very close to Beth.
So
we had met through the Sasquatch and through a friend, and then like Darrell said, it found out, we were right around here in the same area, actually, pretty close. And she had referred me to ask me to get in touch with Darrell, and that he was having some circumstances go on, so with some activity that he was trying to figure out more about how to handle what was happening. So I got in touch with Darrell then, and I think two heads are always better than one, when you can sit down and kind of discuss what's going on and see how to best handle circumstances that are happening. So
Beth's been really become a really close friend of mine, and I was in the LBL in 2022, and I had Dogman all around us, and my phone never works in the LBL. I mean, I get no service at all, and like at 11:45 at night, when me and Martin Groves and Martin Oney had Dogman all around us howling, and Beth calls me on my phone. I couldn't understand how my phone even worked. And I said, Beth, she goes, you need to get out of there. You've got Dogmen all around you, and you've got a feral man. So that was the most unbelievable thing, that my phone even worked, first of all, but that Beth picked up the intuition that I had that harm around me, and we all did, and it did play a difference in the outcome of that night.
Wow.
Well, that night, say I lucid dream, and I guess they call it remote viewing. Now I've always like referred to it as telepathy and um high intuition, but I was here, at my house asleep, and I had laid down and went to sleep on the couch that night. I did have Darrell and Martin, and I think Barton was out there. Um, there was y'all had a pretty good sized group out there, and
Well, at that
I did,
particular time, we was only us
yeah.
day that we grilled out with, but it was only us three camping out in a area we call.
But I lucid dream too, and I always have my whole life, and um, I was laying there asleep. I'd been asleep for a while, and I started dreaming about everybody out there at LBL, and it's no secret. Like on the the last show we did, I have their spirits and stuff around the house. Respectfully, I call them respectfully the house staff around here, and I'm glad they received it that way. It's ones that have lived here too, previously before us, and I had asked them around here at one point. I was like, I hope that's not offensive, and everything seems to have a good sense of humor around here. So, but that they were actually a part of this, the unseen ones around here that night. And I was dreaming about Darrell and Martin and them, and I was hearing growling, and I was just hearing growling and stuff surrounding them in the bushes, and I was hearing, a few hoots and whoops, um, and I was like watching it through my dream, and somebody through the house here, I don't know how to explain it. Lucid dreaming is like kind of being like awake in your dream, in your dreamscape
Yeah.
there. And you're conscious and aware of everything that's going on. But I remember there was one of the ladies that stays around here with the house. She's in spirit. And actually she was a nurse during the Civil War time period here. That she lived here on the grounds, and she came through and she brushed my shoulder and she punched me on the shoulder and she was like, "Hey, hey," she said, "You need to wake up and call Darrell." So
Wow.
I said,
When it was pretty amazing when she called, because that was probably one of the most intense moments of the night. We were Barton Nunley and I were sitting next to the fire, and we're in the woods, pretty deep in the LBL, and in an area we call Area 23. And Martin has backed his RV up all the way into the woods, and he had gotten zapped earlier, an hour or so before that, and he had gotten sick in his stomach, and I'd run him down to the restrooms about 2 miles from there 3 different times because he felt like he was going to throw up, but he didn't. And we had just came back and backed up there, and he wasn't feeling very well. He was leaned back in his seat, and we were out next to the fire. We were in the woods, and he was laying back in his seat trying to recover from being zapped by what I think it was a Bigfoot. We had a Bigfoot watching us that night for a good 2 or 3 hours, and we could see him looking around a cedar tree. And I don't know why he zapped him, but he didn't zap us. But we were all calm and collective until the Dogmans. We started hearing howls all around us, and we could hear them running through the what we call the winter pool when they lower the lake there. We could hear them running across that bay behind us and across the ridge in front of us, and it was pretty intense. I looked at Bart and I said, "Are you ready? Because they're coming in on us." And he had that big sword of his, and we were thinking these things were fixing to attack us. And about that time, Beth calls. And it was just like unbelievable how it happened. And because my phone does not work in the LBL. I can't call anybody. I can't get a signal. And I complain about it all the time. I've tried 3 different phone companies, and there's not one that I've found that will pick up there. And Beth calls, here I am with a dead phone, and it's just ringing. And it was what it was. And it kind of let us know what it was and what happened after. He jumps out of the truck, out of his edge, well, we couldn't even see him. I'm yelling at him, Martin, don't go in there by yourself. These Dogmen are all around us. No, I'm all right. He's walked right by us, walked into the woods where I couldn't see him, and he starts chanting this real loud. I couldn't see him. He was into the woods, and he was chanting this scripture from the Bible, and I couldn't tell exactly what all of it was because he was facing away from us, and it was pretty loud, but I could hear parts of it. And then all of a sudden he turns around and comes back and walks right by us like he's in a trance or something, goes and sits down in his vehicle and lays back again. And I'm talking about, we didn't hear a sound the rest of the night. He could have dropped a pin. They left. So that was probably one of the most unnerving times I've had there when I thought that we were about to be attacked.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
that after I got up off the couch and I was fixing to go outside and call Darrell, I had spoken through the house and I could still hear, I could still hear the nurse. And I had even spoke to her and saw her materialize going through the kitchen when I was headed towards the back door. And so to go outside, and so because I had family and stuff asleep in the house, and I spoke it out loud, and I was like, I'm hoping I can get through to them. I said, because there's no phone signals, going through out there at LBL, nothing picks up. And I said a prayer. I just said a prayer out loud through the air, and I just seriously prayed to Jesus. I prayed to Yeshua, and I said, please, if you can hear me, please patch this through, and it happened. I mean, I was able to get through,
Wow.
and get through to Darrell.
It was absolutely amazing. It really was. And I think even more amazing is the look that Martin had on his face, and the look that Martin, I looked over at him when the phone was ringing, because I've been going in there for, most of my life, hunting or fishing, but I've been researching the last 34 years, and I've never had service. I can't call anybody, and that's the first time I ever got any service, and it was just, that fact alone was mind-boggling, and the fact that I had Dogman and a feral man are close to us even made it even more astounding, because we didn't know what was going on. Especially, I couldn't believe my phone was ringing, but it definitely changed the outcome of that evening. Beth kind of saved us.
Well, I remember when I was like in the dream and I was watching everybody, and I was seeing the trees and the bushes move through the dream, and I guess looking through the window, as you might say, and I could hear the growling. I didn't see anything or anybody coming out and trying to jump immediately, but it just alarmed me because I thought, man, they are getting awful close, And I remember telling Darrell, I said, they're like, I said, y'all could stand out there and like throw a rock and you're going to hit one, okay? They're that close, right there. So, but
we could definitely hear them. They were howling, and it was amazing how they were so close to us, all around us, and we could hear them howling, and they were getting closer and closer. And Barton and I had just climbed that ridge in front of us, and it's probably 150 yards, 45-degree angle straight up almost. And we had climbed it that day, and those things were on top of that ridge, and they were starting to come down that ridge. We could hear them in the leaves, and I thought we were about to get attacked. I really did.
Wow.
So when she called it, it really kind of changed everything. And Martin kept going out and doing what he did too. It was pretty crazy. That chant and what he said, the scripture. I learned a lot of that I learned about that type of stuff from my close friend, Scott, that passed away a couple of years ago. And, he had told me, if you rebuke these creatures, they will not harm you as long as you have Christ in your heart. And I definitely believe that. I know it's true, but you got to be careful how you do that, because you can also rebuke them where you won't see them anymore. That's what happened to Barton. He rebuked them 10 or 12 years ago, and he wasn't able to see them at all. It's weird how that really works, but it does work. And I'm talking about Scott Carpenter. And he had helped me with the late, great Scott Carpenter. He had helped me rebuke the one that attacked my farm in 2020, a rogue Bigfoot. Well, we believe 2 of them. So, but anyway, it worked, and it was all because of Beth and Martin and his scripture together. That I believe these things were going to attack us. I really do.
I just think everything out there was getting a little frisky, and they were starting to feel their oats, and I think that there's a lot of unpredictability. So, but I know I've had encounters, even here on the farm, and my kids have too, and and out hiking in the woods, and a lot of times, they don't try to approach you or anything. I think sometimes it's kind of the way we react and respond to the situation too. You kind of go about your business, and don't try to don't come off like you're gonna step up on anything or get confrontational, and everybody just kind of eyeballs each other and goes on by and goes about their business. So
Yeah, I believe that too. I think it makes a difference. So the ones that you've seen on a regular basis will make a difference. I know Beth has showed me the picture of the orb that's been around her house forever, the blue orb, and it's pretty amazing. So
Right.
I've seen that I don't know how many times, and it's definitely a higher energy there where she's at, and she has all kinds of stuff that happens there. And it's pretty amazing how these entities and even the creatures that we're talking about have a way to raise that energy, that vibration, and change themselves into a different form. So I'm learning more and more about that all the time. So my close friend Ron Moorhead and we talk about this on a regular basis, and it's definitely I think it's more intense now than it's ever been.
So let me ask you about the photos here of the orbs, because I have finally just had my last nerve with these people that keep testing me on, well, that's lens flare. Even one of my closest friends, and I won't even talk to them about it, because they're all saying it's lens flare, except for, now get this, the one person who said to me, it is definitely not lens flare, Katie Page. Now, what does Katie Page know that the rest of these people don't know? Well, she has quite a few experiences because of her background. So if she's sitting there saying this is not lens flare, and all these other people are saying it's lens flare, I have to go with the expert on it. So, but here's my question. So, Darrell, what do you think we're seeing here in these pictures?
Well, I mean, I think the activity's definitely picked up in the last year or two. I can really see a difference myself in the last probably 3 or 4 months. So just by the activity, I'm getting messages from different people, and it seems to me like there's a lot more things going on that people don't understand, and not necessarily just a cryptid of some type, or a Bigfoot, or a Dogman, or some other type of creature. It's other things that seem to be a little different than they once were before. And my meaning of that is stuff that we haven't seen, and stuff that seemed to. I get a lot of messages, and people are seeing dark shadow figures, and I don't know what the dark shadow figures are. I've heard of them for years, but there seems to be more of those, and I'm not sure that it's not an intensity where a Bigfoot may be going interdimensional or coming out of an interdimensional state or whatever. But I know that there's a lot more people messaging me about that, and I'm hearing a lot more stuff of people seeing things in the sky. I mean, they're seeing all kinds of lights in the sky and all kinds of some type of, like movement across the sky real fast at night. So I got a message from Jennifer Appleton about that last month. 4 or 5 other people sent me similar stuff, and they didn't know what it was, and it looks very strange. And Beth's real good at this kind of stuff, so I'll turn this over to her and let her tell you what she thinks it could be.
Well, Jennifer and I, we probably live over here about 20 minutes from each other. So, and her and I have we have developed a sense of humor about it, a crazy one. But there's oftentimes, because she's like southeast, from where I live here, and if I don't know, it just kind of seems like a sky runway down through here in certain sections,
Yeah.
and of course there are a lot of airplanes, but often, and it's escalated that I think over the years and what we've been witnessing, that oftentimes you'll look up in the sky and it's like, there's questions. It's like, that is not a regular airplane. There's a battery of questions, I think, that goes through my mind. I'm like, is that something the government's testing? Is this something new, they're not going to tell us about? But anyway, it appears to be an unknown craft, or a huge orb, perfectly round orb lights in the sky. But oftentimes, if they're coming this direction and they're passing over the farm, I'll call Jen. I'll call Jennifer Appleton, and I'm like, okay, sis, heads up. They're headed y'all's direction, they're headed your way. I don't know if they're, coming over y'all or not. And that there's been many, many times now over the last few years that we've been on the phone, and she'll be out on her back deck, and she's like, yep, sis, here they come. They're coming straight over the house down through here now, So, and sometimes she's been able to capture them on camera better than I could,
Excuse me a second.
So
One of the things I have noticed about the photographs is that the orb stays consistently round the whole time. Now, I bring that up because every single picture that I've seen of a lens flare, the center of it does weird stuff. It takes different shapes, it gets squishy, it turns into all kinds of different shapes. These things, though, And and even the video you sent, the center of it stays round.
Hmm.
The outer edge of it doesn't change. Everything is it's consistently orb like every single time. That's why I'm a little bit confused by why so many other people are seeing the the lens flare when it's clearly not a lens flare. So,
Well, just to add something to that, I think a lot of times, like when we've seen like the orbs up close here, the big round orbs in the sky, that would
Uh,
may possibly be craft. You know, we really don't know, but I have seen them where, like what Daniel you're talking about, to where the center of them will stay perfectly round,
mhm,
but they'll have a light burst with them.
mhm.
You know, they sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I've seen them to where um, there'll be like a light burst with them. You know, and so I wonder if I could see where some people might turn around and say, "Well, no, that's a lens flare." You know, there's been some that I've encountered perfectly round orbs, and then when they go flowing through the air, I'm talking about great big ones up in the sky. Okay, you know, you see, I've seen the smaller ones around here that zip around this property too, but um, sometimes when they flow and go take off, through the sky, your larger craft like beings, I guess, maybe possibly, they will have an energy burst in a tail, you know, and um, there will be a huge burst like that and a lot of light, you know, pushed out. So um, I could understand that too. You know, I agree with Darrell that I think I've watched it over the last several years. It just seems like a lot of activity. It's really leveled up, you know, for whatever reason. A lot of the development, a lot of people building. When they get in here, turning up certain areas of the earth, that releases a lot of energy too. You know, and of course, if you got habitats for different beings, the Sasquatch, the Dogmen, and your nature elementals, all your different beings. I mean, it's gonna turn them upside down too. So,
Right, right.
you know,
yeah, I
What?
agree with what Beth says there. I 100% believe that. I think it's got. I think it's more. I really believe there's more creatures now than it used to be. Also, I really do believe that. There's just more creatures, and I know there's, like she's saying, there's more development and land being pushed out for these creatures to live in. I do agree with that, and but on top of the fact, I just believe there's more of them. And I believe there's also different ones that we are not familiar with coming into play now, also, because I'm getting messages from stuff I've never heard of, and I don't know the answer to it because I haven't seen it. So, but there are definitely more Bigfoot now, or forest people, whatever you like to call them. I think there's two different beings there, but there's more of those now than I think there ever was. I was at a conference in Florida a couple of years ago. Ron Moorhead and I were, and I had a well-known scientist make a statement there might be 5,000 Sasquatch or Bigfoot in the United States, and I'm very respectful, but I started laughing because there might be 5,000 in Tennessee, but I don't know where that figure came from in the United States because I know for a fact there's a whole lot more than that, and I don't know the number, and nobody does, but 5,000 is a ridiculous number. So, um, these creatures are more of them now. They really don't have a enemy unless it's the Dogman. They're pretty much no one. They're over us. We're their lower being compared to them, and there's really no one to take them out unless you're someone out in the woods trying to shoot at them, and which would be stupid and a big mistake. So the best thing to do is try to get along with them and make them befriend them. So there are some rogue ones, and Beth knows that. So you do run across some bad ones, and but I don't know. I know there's more creatures now than there ever was. When I started in '92 by complete accident, since '99, there's no doubt that they have, I think, probably quadrupled in numbers.
I was out in the woods one day, and I was just out hiking, in general, out walking, and I had asked that question, and that had always come to mind, and I had asked the question. I thought, I wonder how many Sasquatch, how many of the Sasquatch people there are, in the world. Kind of like, our human population, there's a whole lot of us. And I'm just going to just straight up say the answer that I received. And I heard a male voice through the trees. The wind picked up through there where I was walking, and I kind of looked over and glanced over, and I saw a male Sasquatch appear through there. I didn't try to go approach him. He didn't try to approach me, but I heard him and saw his mouth moving there close through the trees, and he answered my question. He said, "Do you see all these trees around?" He said, "Everywhere," he said, for every tree in the world, there's one of them.
Wow, I don't doubt that. I really don't. That's amazing.
And that's what he said. It was just like that matter of fact. And and I saw him kind of take a few steps back, and he was gone. And the wind changed directions, and it was very peaceful through there, and there was just such a big feeling of peace that rolled right through that area, for the rest of my hike there. And and I keep a silly sense of humor about stuff, but I've turned that over and over and over in my head at different times. And even just when it comes back to me, I'd be thinking, is he playing with me?
You know what? I mean, back when I got started in this, I had never heard in my first encounter was November the 6th of '92. But when I met the family on the Cumberland River in Tennessee, that I became very close friends with and visited for almost 5 years and was very close to them. I learned then that there's different types of these creatures, and those are definitely a more friendly type and non-aggressive at all. But they're very intelligent. They understand completely when you are a good person or a bad person. They understand your intentions for being there real quickly. So they almost outthink you. And I believe that I never heard of Dr. Matthew Johnson, in case y'all have never heard of him. Some people think he's crazy. I don't think he's crazy, but when I first heard about him, Michael Patterson reached out to me. We had just started Blue Ridge Cryptids, Blue Ridge Bigfoot and Cryptids, and we were probably the first Facebook group on Facebook. That was 2015, I believe. And he reached out to me. Have you heard this Dr. this doctor out of Indiana, or I mean Washington State. And I said, no, what are you talking about? He said, Dr. Matthew Johnson, Dr. J. And I said, never heard of him in my life. And he said, well, he's had a lot of experiences like you have. And immediately he sent me the videos he did. They were I can't remember, I think they were called the Great Reveal 1, 2, and 3. And when I watched those things, I was blown away because he had a very similar stance as I did with these creatures, and a lot more than I did, actually. But I realized that he thinks these creatures live in trees. That's my whole point to this. And I'm starting to believe they do live in trees. So I know that sounds pretty crazy to people out there, but I think they have a way to transform themselves into maybe a tree. I don't know. I've got some pictures just recently from an expedition we got coming up in 2000 this year. And it's amazing, these pictures I've got. It's hard to believe what I'm looking at. These creatures are part of the way in a tree and part of the way out of a tree. And so maybe he was not crazy at all. Maybe he knows what he's talking about. What do you think, Beth?
Well, I think, and I've watched some of them, you know, like when we've been out and they're fading in and out of the woods. I've watched them, and I finally figured out that they will use a lot of certain trees as portals.
Yeah, I think you're right. I really do. I think you're right.
Because I watched one walk through one evening, and that's what he did. It was a huge elm tree, you know, and a few yards off the path that we were on, and I watched him just walk straight through there, and he walked straight in through the tree and disappeared, and I was
that is exactly what I seen. I seen the same thing, different tree, but I seen a large one walk in the middle of a field with a massive tree. It walked right behind the tree. It didn't come out anywhere, but it disappeared.
Yeah, so, that's what this one did.
I witnessed the same thing about 4 years ago.
So it's very interesting. We've got some comments about trees in the chat as well. One of the things I find interesting about that is if you go back to Celtic culture, especially the Druids, there was a lot of trees. They played a lot of importance in Celtic culture and Celtic theology. So it's very interesting that trees are a thing, so to say, here, because there's a lot of connection there, a lot of connection. So it's very curious to me, and depending on what side of the coin you fall on with what you think that the cryptids are or are not, that could be an interesting connection.
Oh, most definitely. I agree with that. You know, some of the photos I've seen of these creatures that I've received lately from our expedition from Ethan Oates on the pictures he's been sent, it's pretty mind blowing. I think Beth has probably seen some of those, and anybody's welcome to see them. If you can see what looks like to be a Sasquatch, and it's partially inside a tree, but the other part of it's not. So I don't know how that's. Of course, we're talking about, you know, a creature that we were made to believe when I was growing up didn't exist anyway. You know, this type of stuff is completely amazing on how the possibilities just keep becoming more and more because of the abilities of these type creatures and so many other creatures that are out there. So the abilities they have is something that's hard to wrap your mind around. And I tell people that, and they're going like, well, I don't think they can do that. I said, well, that's why the pictures look blurry when you look at them, because they have such a higher energy and vibration. A lot of times they're between going interdimensional or between cloaking, whatever you want to call it, or they're coming out of that. Now you'll see some pictures that aren't like that, but most generally, all the Sasquatch pictures or Bigfoot or whatever you want to call them, forest people, all look like that. They're a little blurry or a little grainy looking in the pictures, and I think it's just a natural ability that they have.
Also, too, it's like, watching any of the elementals and I mean even human spirits, that walk around. I've watched them go in and out of trees. Even out here on our property. I've watched spirits that kind of stay around here on the property, walk straight through and go into a grove of trees or go into a couple of specific trees, um, out here in different spots, and just disappear. And then I've watched them walk back out. So
Crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of your groves of trees also protect a lot of your portal areas, you know. So they do protect a lot of your portal areas. And many times when I keep hearing more and more about it and I keep getting more messages and phone calls, this is really leveling up. When you got an area like a farm that's pretty much wooded and it's been undisturbed for years and years and years now, when they go in and clear cut like that, um, and then all this activity jumps up, and people are actually, getting pretty fearful and they're like, oh my gosh, something is clubbing the side of my house at night, or walking around the back, and they're seeing a lot of lights and a lot of things they can't explain, out in that clear cut area. And I've got to where I ask, I'm like, okay, um, you're telling me that the field's been clear cut, right? And they're like, yeah, right. The land's being sold off. But I'm like, how old was that grove of trees over in this certain corner of the property?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, that hadn't been disturbed for years and years and years. And I'm like, well, okay, you you disturbed the portal area. When you cut those groves out, you've totally turned the portal area upside down, and now it's all reacting, you know. So, and that's a lot of questions, from people, and they're like, well, when is it gonna calm down? And I'm like, everything out here has a total free will of its own, you know. Um, I don't know when it's gonna calm down. You don't know if it's ever gonna calm down, because I mean, when you go in and upset something's home, just like if somebody runs through our house, we're going to react and we're going to get upset about it, And most people don't find that funny, but I'm like, okay, these beings, and you see what you're seeing coming in and out, you know. They've been pretty settled over here, and you just didn't realize that you have neighbors. Now you've got some new roommates right up next to your house over here, So,
Well, even Beth and I have go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I'm wondering if some of the activity that keeps increasing, if the colliders have something to do with some of these some of the reactions that we're getting as well.
I wouldn't doubt that at all.
No, I wouldn't either. Yeah. I think there's a lot of reasons, but that would definitely be a strong reason. So, You know, Beth and I have a friend that's seen a dog man walking in the middle of the daytime in downtown Lebanon, Tennessee, in a graveyard. So,
Yeah.
you know, every time I think about that, it's just remarkable. I mean, you hear about so many dogman sightings around graveyards, but this was in the middle of downtown, and we're talking about an area that's well populated with a dogman just walking around in the middle of the daytime. All right, Beth?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's she's in our group, and she's a friend of mine that I grew up with, and she called she called one evening, and she's just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe what we saw." And this is in the middle of the local city cemetery here in Lebanon, you know. And but there's a road that you got cemetery on both sides of the road, and there's a road that passes, a main road that passes straight through it. And a lot of people, will cut through there, to cut around the backside and avoid the busier main areas of Lebanon. And they were cutting back through there. I go through there too a whole lot. And but she said she was
I think she
excited.
had a lady with her. I believe she had a lady with her.
I don't know if that was her mom that was with her.
Yeah, somebody was with her, but they couldn't believe what they were seeing. That's just my point, though. You're seeing more of these creatures, all types of creatures now, more than you ever have, and it's, the Bible speaks of these creatures coming out at one time. If you're a believer or Christian, I am. I do believe that will happen. I don't know when, but none of us do. But it speaks of them, the creatures coming out, and you're seeing more and more. And I'm not trying to say that's about to happen. I'm just saying that when you see one in the middle of the daytime in a well-populated area, it's pretty fascinating if you think about it, because most people don't ever see one, much less in the middle of the daytime.
Right.
That's what she described. She asked me, she said, "Beth," she said, "did we see a hellhound in the cemetery over here?" And she described it. The description of it, she said it was wolf-like. It was running on all fours. She said it was about as big as a small horse, a smaller horse, and she did describe that it had like red eyes. So, and I said, well, it's possible. A lot of people think that those are hellhounds. I said, but it could have been a dog man the way it sounds, And that shocked her and everybody, and she's like, right here in the cemetery in the middle of town. And I said, well, a lot of your encounters, they do frequent the cemeteries. So I said,
I mean, I don't think you can ever. I don't think you can ever discount any of this stuff that's going on. I know Beth has had a friend, or maybe it was even you, that's seen a portal in the middle of Walmart.
yeah.
I mean, and I will say this: the area that Beth lives in, her and Jennifer Appleton, it's a real hot spot for all type of creatures. It has been for a long time, and it still is. There's multiple sightings of Dogman, Bigfoot on a regular basis, and UFO on a regular basis. So I don't know why some of these areas are just like complete hot spots over others, but they're just areas like that, and they're in one of them.
Well, now, Walmart, I'm sure Lebanon Walmart won't appreciate me explaining this, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So, but I had gotten over there temporarily on night shift here back it's been about 2 or 3 years ago. And my friend Adrema, she's in the group. She's the one that saw the hellhound dogman in the cemetery, But she got on working over there at night also. And I had left for another job. She stayed over there for a little while. But she she called me one day, and she said, Beth, she said, I got a question. She said about this back storeroom back here in Walmart. And I knew where she was going with it before she was asking me, because I thought, oh no, I've not said anything about none of that activity back there, because I don't just come out, and say, hey, uh, you know, you got about 3 portals back here, and there's roaming pioneer spirits. I don't say anything if I see a whole lot, because if somebody else don't see it and they're in
Right.
their comfort zone and it's not bothering them, I don't want to traumatize anybody. Now, if
Right.
they see it and say something, yes, as y'all know, I'll help. Or try to help. Um, calm the situation. But as stalkers, you got to go back there and put some of your leftover merchandise back up. And she said, Beth, she said, I keep seeing this woman. She said she's got on like, antiquated dress, kind of like back in the frontier pioneer time. She wears a bonnet. And she said, I've seen her walk back through there, more than once. And she told me, she said it's freaking her out, and she said, please, you see them and you deal with them and you talk to them. She said, what's going on? And I said, well, and I explained to her, I said, I've been in Walmart, other than just working, I said, but I've seen her through Walmart a lot. I've seen this specific woman that she described walking through the store past customers and at different times over the years, you know. So, and sometimes I would watch the customers if you're in there shopping, and I see them kind of look over, like they might sense something, but then maybe they did see something and just didn't acknowledge it, or and then a lot of people walk right past. But Adrema said, it's really creeping me out. She said, I wish you would try to help do something here. And I said, well, she's been there for a while, okay? And I explained to her, I said, I figured out a long time ago, she's looking for her baby, okay? And whatever, circumstance, there was some tragedy and stuff, and I believe, uh, the lady had lost the baby, and so, sometimes, I mean, your spirits are still in shock, with that trauma and everything. So it leaves an imprint, and I explained, I said, she's not gonna hurt you, and she said, I know, but other people are seeing her too, going back and forth, So, but I believe Walmart here in Lebanon was built over there. It's kind of a swampy marsh area over there on the side of it, And from what I understood, doing some research and talking to some people about it, there was an old farm there, and I think for years, with us growing up here, there's like a little neighborhood back there right behind it that had been back there for a long time, but there was also a farm, and there was an old pioneer cemetery back there. So I don't know if that's where the lady came from.
Well,
Probably.
you actually just live in it. You actually live in an area that's just a hot spot, though. You really do. You and Jennifer both do. The Lebanon area is just a hot spot for all this type of abnormal stuff. So,
Yeah, that is kind of. You know what? I worked at that Walmart for a period of time before I got this job that I have now, and it was, first of all, the people that work there is the most strange group of people I've ever seen in my life. I love them dearly, but they were just out of this world crazy,
I
and
agree.
it's like I it was it, I finally had to leave. I just had to leave. I could not any longer. Between the energy of that store and uh, the different levels of crazy that I was dealing with, I had to go. So, yeah, and I've had, because I drive. Well, let me tell you guys this. I drive 40 to 84 going back and forth to East Tennessee because I work in East Tennessee about somewhere between 4 and 6 months out of the year most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of going 96 to, what is it, 70 or 870, I try to go 84 to 40 to avoid Sparta in that area. So the other day, what was it, Thursday, yesterday, they had that wreck on 40 on the westbound. It sent me through, first of all, it sent me through a snowstorm. Thank you very much. People having wrecks on 40. There was snow in Crawfordsville, scared me to death because it was snowing so bad I couldn't even see at times. But I got on my way. I didn't even think about it because I hadn't been there in so long. And I got to the overpass or the overlook there before you get to Sparta. And I was like, oh crap, this is the way we don't go. And there are reasons why I don't go that way anymore. And all the way from there to Sparta, as usual, was just a massive amount of, I could just feel it. I could feel them around. And then, of course, the closer I got, I kept going, there's got to be a way to get out of here. There's got to be a way to get off of this highway. Maps would not get me off of there. Would not get me off of there.
Really?
No, would not. Said it could not find a route other than that one. So, and remember, Beth, me telling you that there was the one day that I got over there to get off of 40 and to go on to 840, and something weird happened and I wound up in a completely different place all of a sudden.
Yes, where you wind up losing time.
Well, it was more than losing time. I was like in a completely different place and different direction. And then it was like, I'm like, what just happened? So, and I only live 30 minutes from Lebanon too. So it's very interesting, the dynamics of this area. The other thing I want to say, by the way, Darrell, Anna Kaywood Jones, that I believe said that she uses AT&T, and she's done an interview from LBL on the show before. The only problem she had the whole time was one of the park rangers stopped to ask her what she was doing. We thought he was going to make her leave, but he just was like, okay,
well, you know what? I have remembered now that Barton Nunley had AT&T at one time, and he got a signal once, but I've never been able to get a signal. And I know Anna Kay. I think the world of Anna Kay and Kevin. They're both good friends of mine, and I've enjoyed camping out with them quite a few times in the LBL. And I appreciate her commenting on that.
They're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. One of the things I do want, because we're heading into that hour here, I want to ask you guys, to just kind of wrap it up, what are your thoughts on what's causing the activity in these areas, especially, like I said, in what's basically the Metro Nashville area? I mean, Lebanon is not that far away.
No, it's not. It's not.
So what do you guys feel is really the core of this?
I think it's either an intense energy surge, which would be because the way all these creatures operate, in my opinion, is a higher energy, a higher vibration than we do. And that all goes to the quantum physics of, Ron Moorhead and Barton Nunley and Martin Groves are been my best friends for Martin 46 years. Ron a long time and a teammate for quite a while. Same with Barton. And and Mike Smith. Mike Smith's been such a close friend of mine. These guys all feel the same way I do about the energy. If you've ever read a book that it breaks down what we're looking at in the future is Quantum by Ron Moorhead, and it's right behind me here. It's Quantum Bigfoot. It breaks down the difference in the energy. I think that there's interdimensions that we've never stepped into. We never may ever be able to see, like these creatures can. And I think it does have all these creatures have a higher vibration than we do, and they can transport themselves into interdimensional or to an orb-like entity and move around. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Their energy is increased, which is causing more of the things we've been hearing about. What do you think, Beth?
I totally agree. I've always thought that the Sasquatch and the Dogman, and also any of your nature beings, they all vibrate, at different frequency levels. A lot of people, I hear them think that we vibrate on a lower frequency level, with us being physical bodies, but they can work off of our frequency level also. But the reason we think that we're at a lower frequency level is just because of the density, the solidity, the density, of our bodies and this physical world. I've come to not necessarily think that we're not necessarily like lower. Everything just runs in degrees, Everything runs in different degrees. So do frequency levels run in different degrees. Like Darrell said, if they can raise their energy levels, the Sasquatch, if any of them can raise their energy levels, well, they're going to be vibrating on a much higher frequency. So, wouldn't that synchronize with, going through a portal and going into another dimension? They're able to pass through there. You see your shaman, it's been written and documented for years, where they describe, your gifted people, you're different people with all sorts of different characteristics and stuff, that some people walk with one foot here and they walk with one foot in the other world, and
between worlds,
walking in two different worlds at the same time. And I've often thought that watching the Sasquatch, I thought, well, that's what they're doing. That's possibly what they're doing,
Yep, I agree.
So, and so are your Dogmen, I do think, some of the Bigfoot, I think watching them, I think some are maybe more solid, you know, or more
I
dense,
think so.
and you know, like humans, they they're at home here, and this is just where they want to be at, you know. So I've
Right.
seen
I
some
agree.
that don't communicate. They don't mind speak. You know, um, they don't want to. You know, so you know they're here in their world, in their groves, in their woods, and you know they just want to go about their business. You know, and live. So, but
I
and then
agree.
some of them do mind speak. Some of them communicate. Some of the communication is out of this world. I've found out that some of them know a lot of different languages.
They definitely know
Yeah.
a lot of different languages. They know that they have their own language also.
Yes,
Right. Mhm.
you do.
Mhm.
It's definitely interesting. My own experiences here has proven to me that something is here. Um, Again, I keep a skeptical approach to it, at least possibly as much as I can. Just as an investigator, you can't just. Um, I'm my form of my technique for investigating is kind of a lot of scrutiny to it. So uh, I have to they have to pretty much pounce me on the head to get my attention sometimes for me to wonder if it's just my perception or if they're real. But I do know that I know people, and I know that the experiencers, all of you guys, are experiencing some pretty crazy stuff. And when you tell me your experiences, you're coming from a place of authenticity because uh, your actions, your thoughts, the way that you put things together, the way that you word things, uh, facial expressions, all of those things factor into how you tell your experiences. And without having to see what you've seen, I can definitely tell that what you're saying is authentic and true. It's mind-boggling to me because the logical side of me wants to say this can't be, Martin's story. This just can't be. But to hear him and see him telling his story, there's no way that it can't not be. You know what I'm saying? It's like
It's hard to wrap your mind around it. It really is.
it is, but the authenticity of how he tells what happened to him, you can't refute it. You can't refute it. And Martin is a big old guy, big police officer guy. He's not going to. They are trained through their job to not be reactive to situations.
Oh yeah, I go way back with him. We've been best friends 46 years, and in 1993, I just had my encounter in '92 November. He had his in April of '93. I had nobody we could talk to. He had nobody we could talk to. He was a sheriff's deputy with a higher degree in the sheriff's department, and I was a mayor at that time, and my first term, if I remember correctly, and we used to go to lunch and tell each other and talk about our stories because we had nobody else we could talk to. They all thought we would be crazy if we started talking about what we'd seen. So, yeah, Martin's straightforward, 100%. He's right on what he's saying. He's always been honest about everything, and he's just a great individual who's had an experience that most people wouldn't want to have, and he's very lucky to live through it. Him and Harry both.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is from that point on, he has been targeted by them.
Mm.
Yep.
And that is one of the, this is the, and Beth's experience, they seem to have tagged her. You know, I mean, her property, her area, her living space is literally just a freaking magnet. There's no way. I mean, I
Well,
didn't even know. Go ahead.
I think, you know, when I started really seeing like your Dogman, you know, even like in Pack, you know, cross through our back field area here, you know, and that's been over 10
Sorry,
years
you guys.
ago. But
My
I
cord
thought,
keeps coming out. Go ahead,
I
Beth. I'm
thought,
sorry. My
why are
cord
they
keeps coming
crossing
out my
through here?
phone. Go ahead.
Why are they crossing through here? And it always occurred to me later, I thought, why am I being so self-centered in my thinking that way? You know, I mean, we're not sitting out here in the backyard 24/7, you know, watching for this to happen. And I thought that they probably always been here, you know. And I hadn't always lived here on this property. My grandparents, you know, this was their place for years. We were back here as kids, you know, since the early 70s. And we saw a lot of things then as kids, you know. But I thought it's a habitat down there. This whole area is one big habitat. You
I
know,
agree.
we've got a huge creek, you know, that borders the property, Spring Creek, that runs year round. So I thought, why would we be down through here? You've got deer. We've seen Bigfoot over the years. We're still sort of close to town anyway. You know, town has grown a whole lot closer over the years, of course. We've heard critters down here, you know, in the evenings. Like that, I mean, so, you know, why wouldn't they be here too, you know?
Right, right, right. Yeah. I really got to tell you guys, like, I'm just, for one thing, I'm very grateful to know both of you, because it's like the things that I am learning as we go, you know, and Darrell, I've been following you for a while now, with online with your information and so
Well,
forth.
thank you. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be on your show tonight, and thank you for having me. And I've enjoyed meeting you this last year at the conference in Tennessee, and I hope I see you again this next year. And of course, Beth and I have been pretty close for a good while, and I can't wait to see her again. So, thanks again for having me on tonight.
Well, I really appreciate both of you being on. Actually, I'm trying to get Beth to go to the conference this year too.
She was supposed to went last year. She had tickets, but she just couldn't make it. So,
yeah, I'm planning on definitely going this coming year.
well, I haven't been invited yet. I hope they invite me back. They have the last 3 years, so I hope that I'm invited back. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
If they don't, you know, we're gonna have something to say about it. So,
well, I don't know of anything that I've done to keep them from inviting me, but let's hope they invite me back. I enjoy that conference. Probably, I do a lot of conferences, but that's probably my favorite one.
now this past year, it was disappointing. We had tickets. My whole family was gonna go, and my youngest son, I asked him kind of what he wanted to do. He was getting ready to go into basic training in the Army. So, and the Bigfoot conference was coming up, and he said, you know, I'd like to go do that before, you know, I take off. So I was like, cool, you know, we're going to go do the Bigfoot conference. And I will be darned if they didn't call him in. They called him to come on and ship out
Yeah,
for
it happens
basic
sometimes. It's all right.
like
Maybe,
a week or so earlier. And I mean, it was like right there at the conference time,
yeah.
you know. So
maybe you make this next one, and hopefully I'll be there. Hopefully we'll all be there.
Exactly. All right. Well, I tell you what, I want to thank you guys again for showing up, being with us, sharing your stories. It is so important for us to understand, and I want to get you guys and maybe a couple of other locals back at some point, maybe even on the same show, to really dig into again things as they're happening, because there's so much happening at once here right now. And
Sure, I'll be glad to come back
Yeah.
on again. I have no problem with that.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to go on and close this out for the night. Thank
All
you
right.
again.
Thank everybody for watching.
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you too.
Thank you.
It's been
Yeah,
a blast.
thank you, Daniel, for having us. And Beth, good to see you, sweetie. I'll talk to you soon.
You too. So
Yeah.
I hope y'all are doing better and doing well. So
My battery's going down on my phone all night. I keep having to get up and plug my charger in. I don't know why it's not working, but it's not. So we're getting better. But thank you so much for asking. Thanks everyone for watching, and Daniel, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Okay, guys. Again, I gotta tell you, like this area, we're not exaggerating when we say this is a hot spot through here. Between here, where I live, and Lebanon, it's a massive thing. We'll keep you guys informed, and we will let you know. This is the place to be to find out what's happening in the Metro Nashville area. And until next time, may your journey always be magical. Okay.
I've waited for so long to see when you come back to me. Through the wars and battles that were lost, we're born again, it's you and me. The rest is history. Past lives. Past lives. Did we dance together on different floors in 1500 or 1504? We must have been lovers, we must have been something in our past